needed. So you felt like there was this really great connection of people around each other to make that happen. Android was also open, which I loved, again, as a university student that had no money. There was a lot of freely available stuff as well, which was great. Because I think Android itself was free and open, that motivated people to make their projects free and open, to create more open source projects than, comparing to things like iOS. I mean, that's purely speculation. I'm not sure if that's actually the case, but it felt like it. It felt like Android had more available resources to you without having to give money to Apple. And there was this element of collaboration as well. I could see it, especially with things like the custom ROMs, people getting together to develop something new, to test it, to break it, to start again, to build something new. And that process just kept going over and over. And because it was in the forums, you could see that as like a historic timestamp of what had happened. And that was really kind of positive to me and really something that meant that I knew that if I was going to do that, that support would be there as well. It did also help that it wasn't Apple. As I mentioned, I was a broke university student. I didn't have the money for even just paying the Apple developer license costs. I didn't want to spend that kind of money. I couldn't. So it not being Apple was also a big positive to me. There was something else available out there. So as I sort of said, this was all going on while I was at university, and I actually kind of, I actually went to university to study computer science with game design. It's a very attractive, that's better. Very attractive photo of me at my graduation. I'm not really sure what face I'm pulling, but it's fine. I went to study game design, computer science and game design. I thought, well, I like playing computer games and I like programming. So clearly I'm going to enjoy programming computer games. What I found was that was not the case. I am terrible at math, for one. So anything that was to do with the physics engines and all that sort of stuff, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. My brain just does not work in 3D matrices. It just doesn't happen. What I also found was the market was incredibly saturated. And if I wanted to get into computer games, I was going to spend many years doing work that I didn't really enjoy. And I was going to be kind of a dog's body for a long time. It was going to suck. And that just didn't sound appealing to me anymore. It wasn't something I wanted to do. So you've got these two kind of things going on. You've got this new, exciting community that I've got involved with and I'm really enjoying. And you've got me questioning my career path and what do I actually want to do. So Android really helped shape my career because it was there at the right time. And it made me realize that actually, even though there were plenty of days where I had no idea what I was doing, and Stack Overflow was definitely my friend, it was still a job that I enjoyed. It was still work that I really enjoyed talking to people about, I really enjoyed getting involved with. And so I started to shift my focus away from games completely and thought, yes, Android is where I want to go. Android is something that I want to do as a job. It also gave me an opportunity that I just hadn't had before to network. This is a much thinner, less hairy version of me from about 10 years ago at an XDA conference. And this was one of the first talks that I ever gave, and it was terrible, but people loved the content, people loved what I was doing, and that was exciting. It was really exciting to be able to talk to people that were interested in the same thing as me. And I'd never experienced that really before. And so the Android community gave me a chance to network, to learn new things from other people, to go to events where I would learn about things that I wouldn't necessarily even thought of trying to learn. So there was definitely this kind of suddenly, this new world that was completely opened up. And what that meant is I graduated, I left university, so I decided, right, I'm going to start freelancing. This is what my wife likes to call the wife block of 5,000, my monitor screens that would just basically block the whole room. So I freelanced for about 6 years after university because there was just so much work available for mobile development. It was a time where every single company in the world wanted a mobile app, even though most companies in the world had no business case for a mobile app. They didn't actually have any use for the mobile app, and most of the mobile apps were just websites. But they really wanted it, and it sounded cool, and they could put, download from the Android marketplace and all these kind of buzzwords. So marketing loved it, so they absolutely had to have it, and that opened up a lot of freelancing opportunities because people realized, well, we want this, but actually there aren't many people doing it. It's kind of hard to find an Android developer. So that was great for me. And it also meant that as I was freelancing, my time was kind of my own. I was able to set my own schedule. I was able to continue doing the things in the community that I did enjoy, like being a moderator on XDA, being involved in projects, and all that sort of fun stuff. But one of the issues that I got into kind of maybe within sort of 3 years of starting freelancing was I got into this thought process of every single minute of my day should be billable. And I shouldn't be doing anything that's free. And so what that did mean is I did a lot less events, I did a lot less meetups, I did a lot less conferences. That really sucked. I think that was one of my biggest mistakes of my early career, was not coming to these events and stuff, because in my mind, I wasn't billing someone for that, so it wasn't something I could be spending days doing. And it would cost me money because I'd have to buy travel, hotel, or all that sort of stuff. So that was definitely something I missed out on, and something I always encourage anyone that's working for a company that will cover that, take that opportunity. I mean, you're all here today, so in some way or another, you've taken that opportunity, which is great. But it's kind of, I need to have this talk to the people that aren't here. But still, take those opportunities when you can, because it's something that I really did miss out on. But through all that, there was one project that I did keep going in my personal project, which was the Linux on Android project. This was basically a project that allowed you to install GNU Linux applications on your Android device and run them on device via chroot. So because you had the Linux kernel, all you had to really do is set up the right mounting points. Obviously you needed root, but get all this stuff set up and you could run full applications on your device. It was a personal project that I had actually started very early on, and it kind of started out as just like a bash script, and it exploded into an application and a whole project, and it's something I could give a 2-hour talk on its own, so we won't do that, but it was something that I really enjoyed doing. We also did a Kickstarter, because I mean, it was like 2013, everyone was doing Kickstarter, it was the thing you had to do, and it was quite successful. So it meant that I was able to kind of focus on this full time for a few months. And again, that's something that I just wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for the Android communities behind that. The people that actually wanted to use that, the people that kind of pushed me to keep going with the project. We ended up with over 1 million downloads, and by all means, it was very successful. It's also something that I'm trying to get back to. It kind of got abandoned for many years because life, but it's still there, and it's something I want to come back to because there's a lot of interest. So I did that for a few months, and what that actually kind of moved me into is, instead of freelancing, I started contracting. It meant that I could work with companies across the world in a slightly more structured way, so I had a little bit more job security. And particularly one project was building this tablet with an Australian company. The idea was basically it was going to be an Android tablet, but when you docked it, it had a full Linux environment on a desktop. This predated things like Samsung DeX, that Ubuntu's offering, which I know they then kind of killed, but that existed. And I think also Motorola did one with the Atrix and like WebTop. There was lots of these projects going on. And again, I couldn't have had that kind of experience if it wasn't for the Android community. I wouldn't have been able to work on an actual physical piece of hardware if I hadn't done the Linux and Android project, which I wouldn't have done if I hadn't got involved in XDA, which I wouldn't have done if the community wasn't there. This whole kind of trail of many, many years all came back to the fact that the Android community is amazing and is what it is. However, During the pandemic, I kind of hit a bit of a roadblock. I hit a bit of a point where I just wasn't happy. As a lot of people, it really sucked. It was a terrible time, and I needed a change. I thought, it's time to do something new. And in my mind, that meant getting another Android job, which kind of was true anyway, but another Android developer job, or maybe I was going to be, move into management, or maybe I was going to lead a team, or something like that. I thought that's what's going to happen. So I started working with recruiters. One of the recruiters had an Android developer advocate position for Huawei. And the recruiter came to me and said, look, it's got the keywords Android and developer in the title. You'll be perfect. Right, okay. What's a developer advocate? And they said, I've got no idea. I don't know. Look it up. Okay. So, ever the useful recruiter, I did. I went off and I started learning about what being a developer advocate was, about developer relations in general. And the discoveries I made kind of changed everything. I realized that this is what I enjoy doing. That technical aspect, but also all these other things that throughout my whole career I've tried to do where I can, and for whatever reason, that has never been able to be my priority. So I went through the interview process, I got the job, and I very much realized it was all the things I was already doing. Going to events, talking at events, creating content, helping the community, all these parts of the job, which I'd previously been doing for free or in my own time or whatever it was, I could suddenly be paid to do that. That was great. And specifically for that job, and then also I was with Huawei for a year, and then I moved into my current position with Vonage. Both of those maintained a really good balance between coding and the other aspects of DevRel, the community side. At Vonage, I manage the Android SDK. So I'm still writing production code every week, maybe not every day anymore, but every week. I'm still doing production level developer stuff, but I get to do other stuff like this. I get to come and see the community, talk to people, and also be paid for it. That does help. So what I kind of want to talk for a few minutes is kind of, what is developer relations? I think it's a term that, for me personally, it's a term I'd never heard of. Looking back, I don't really know what I was thinking, because there had to be someone that was giving all the talks. There had to be someone that was doing these booths, that was doing those jobs. But I never really considered who those people would actually be. And so it's kind of a topic that I talk to people about in engineering teams, even within our own company, and a lot of them, they don't have a clue what developer relations are, what we do. So it's something that I like to kind of spread awareness about. It might be something that interests you, or it might just be nice extra information. But for me, developer relations, if your company wants to get developers to use your tool, whether it's an SDK, an API, some cloud interface, whatever it is, you've got something you want developers to use, developer relations is a really great way of encouraging that adoption. It kind of tends to sit in the middle of software development, product, and marketing. It's not just one of the three, it's very much a combination of all three. And done right, it's way more powerful than any of the combined components. So one way to look at it is we can kind of break it down into the 3 C's: code, content, and community. On the content side, we are encouraged to produce content, whether that's videos, whether that's slightly embarrassing TikToks, whether that's blog posts, being active on social media in general, whatever it is, you're producing that content to encourage other developers, whether it's related to the product that you're in charge of, whether it's related to your company, or just the community in general. You're encouraged to produce content. You're encouraged to continue learning and help other people grow. But particularly as a developer advocate, you still are involved in code. That might just be creating sample projects, creating code snippets, creating ideas to encourage other developers to get started. Or that could be something more like what I'm doing, where you are actually in charge of production-ready code, whether that's an SDK, whether that's another tool that exists. You're in charge of actually doing that. And the point is you are a mixture of being a developer, but also you understand the community, you understand what developers actually want, and you're able to filter out all the stuff that marketing says would be a great idea, or product says would be a great idea, and actually find the bits that are good for developers. And then also you get to be involved in community and create photos like that. But that's an aspect that I just couldn't find anywhere else, is being able to be involved in these events, being able to give talks, being able to go to meetups, whatever it might be. You're enabling that to happen, and you're encouraging other people to learn along the way. So in one way, it really is connecting the internal developer teams of a company with the external developer teams. You're making sure that the external developers' issues are being heard internally. Maybe there's a bug that they've filed through support, and support's gone, oh yeah, that sounds like an issue. We'll raise that with product. And product said, oh yeah, we'll stick that on the roadmap in 10 months' time. We'll see you later. And then engineering finally gets hold of it, and it takes another 3 sprints to happen, or whatever it is. You can kind of bypass that by having a developer relations team that can, using their kind of knowledge of the domain and of the communities, they know which bits are important and how to prioritize things. So if a developer comes in with a bug and you know that that bug is actually going to put a lot of people off from using it, you can just shortcut that whole process and actually talk to the internal developer teams and say, look, we need to do something about this. Subsequently, it goes the other way. An internal developer team might have a really great idea for a new feature, but without actually talking to communities and understanding what people get out of that product, how do they know it's actually a good feature? I'm sure we've all been there. There's a feature that you've wanted to implement because it'd be really great for you, but you're not necessarily the target audience. You're not necessarily the person that's using the product. So it's worth having that conversation and being able to go back to communities and say, look, we've got this idea. What do you think? And that's what we do. Ultimately, we are helping developers be successful with the tools that our companies offer. We want them to be successful. We want them to have a nice experience, to be able to go to the documentation and it actually makes sense. It's actually up to date and it actually works, and be able to kind of find the sample code that shows you how to use the thing and not just kind of wishy-washy say, oh yeah, just do this. We also, as I keep hammering on about, bridge the gap between companies and community. Traditionally, there's a big gap between those two kind of entities. Traditionally, you have the software companies, they're building the thing, you have communities that are building up around that thing, but they don't necessarily really talk to each other. Take Android as example, you know, things like XDA developers, that was not really linked to Google in any way, shape, or form, but it was this massive community that had been built. So when you then got the Google DevRel teams, they can interact with the two and make things happen. We also make really cool stickers. And I've actually, little plug, I've put some stickers out on the coffee table outside. They're shiny. You definitely should take some. I've got more as well, so please do, because stickers are amazing. But we try and find the swag that's actually worth having. And, you know, especially at Vonage, we've been working very hard this year to create more sustainable products, to create things that developers are actually going to use instead of go, oh yeah, that's nice, and throw it in the bin. And, you know, I think that's really important as well. It comes back to understanding what developers actually like. And I think it's pretty safe to say most developers do like stickers. Don't know why, but we do. So that's kind of DevRel in a nutshell. It's a much bigger topic. There's a lot more nuance and there's a lot more going on. There's lots of other roles within developer relations as well. It's not just developer advocates, but those are kind of the real key topics, I guess. And again, I could give a 3-hour talk on developer relations, but hopefully that's kind of sparked some interest there. And if it's something that you want to learn more on, again, there's lots of great content online. Go have a look. So again, when I was working on this talk, what made me realize was that there were, not only was communities really important for my career and got me to where I am today, but there were key people that really made a huge difference. And so I do kind of want to thank them specifically, because without them, I don't think I would be here. I would probably be stuck in some game development company doing, I don't know, it's just depressing thinking about it, so I won't. For one, of course, Stephanie, I have to thank for CyanogenMod. It's something that, you know, anyone that was using Android at a certain time and was interested in custom ROMs, they're gonna have installed CyanogenMod at some point. Whether it was their daily drive or just something they were interested in, it was massive. And it really did pioneer a lot of the things that we see in Android itself today. There was a lot of things from those projects that ended up one way or another being in Android. Also have to thank Chainfire for all his work on root and relentlessly, specifically with the Samsung devices, relentlessly battling against Samsung to find new ways of gaining root, to getting around the issues that were added. For me personally, I had a lot of Samsung phones, and if that hadn't have happened, it may well have discouraged me and I may well have stopped being so involved. So I do have to thank him for his very ongoing work there. Then Dog, or Jeremy, he was kind of one of the people in charge of the XDA moderator teams when I was a moderator, but he's also now in developer relations. He works for Circle CI. And it seems like every point in my life, whenever there's been a big change, he's given me some sort of wisdom or advice, which has been super, super useful. So he's kind of a fountain of knowledge, and I definitely have to thank him specifically as well. So thank you. All the XDA moderators in general, the team that kind of, even to this day, are working tirelessly to make it a safe, engaging place where you can actually go and get information about Android devices. It's not easy work, if I do say so myself, and it's often thankless, so thank them. And the users, anyone that's ever used XDA, which I'm sure is at least some of you, without that community, without those users, without that engagement, everything I've done would never have happened. So I have to thank them all as well. And then coffee. I mean, if I'm going to thank anything, it's got to be coffee, because without that, specifically in my years at university, the very late nights, working away on projects when I should have been doing university work anyway, coffee is the only thing that kept me going. So I have to thank coffee. It is incredibly important. So if we've had a look at kind of the past, we've had a look at what developer relations is, what does the Android community look like now? I think now is an incredibly exciting time. I was trying to think of a way of summing it up, and I kind of came up with community cubed. It is a magnitude more impressive than it was then. There is so many more options and so much more out there. You have the social media element. You have these communities on your social media of choice. And, you know, back then, I mean, there might have been a Facebook group, or maybe even like a Google Plus group, if anyone remembers that. That went well. But they weren't that big. And a lot of the time as well, they weren't very inclusive, or they were often full of trolling, and it just wasn't a particularly pleasant place. But that's changed dramatically, and I really think that there are a lot of really great social media communities out there now for Android. The Discord and Slack servers and communities that are available, neither of those things existed when I started Android. If I wanted a real-time community, I'd have probably had to have fired up an IRC server or gone on Skype, neither of which I really wanted to do. So again, that kind of real-time element was just something that didn't really exist in any, at least to my knowledge. So having that now is great as well. You've got a question you can ask straight away, or if there's just being able to hang out with other people that have the same interest as you is such a powerful thing. Local meetup groups. When I was starting Android, there wasn't really meetup groups at all. And even the ones that were there were very kind of specific, or you just had the big conference. That was kind of it. But now, pretty much, I'm almost safe in saying that pretty much any major city in the world probably has an Android meetup group that you can get involved in. I mean, Lundroid is my personal local community, but there are loads out there. And I think it's a really great place, again, to give you those options to meet up in person, to chat, or even do it virtually. That's obviously something that's kind of new as well that we weren't doing back then. Being able to kind of get involved with these things, no matter your circumstance, no matter your situation. But of course, we've got to talk about the big events as well. I think those are really very powerful for learning. Specifically, you'll find that you learn things that you would never have even considered getting involved with. I know that there's been talks where I would never have gone to the talk. I would never searched that topic if it wasn't for the fact that I was at the event and that was what was on. So I went and had a look, and it was interesting. These are things that you don't get an option about just going online, because you have to know what you want to learn. And so it's just such a powerful way to learn new things and continue your skills. So how can you get involved in the Android community, or communities in general? How can you best make use of those communities, both for yourself and to help others? Well, attend events. Well done, you've all done that. You get the first point already. But they really are a great way to learn and a great way to meet new people, to network, and to find out things that you wouldn't have found out otherwise. Join these social media communities. One of the great things about social media communities is it's completely down to you how much work you put in. You could create a specific Twitter profile. Maybe you don't like Twitter, but you could create a specific Twitter profile with its only job to join the Android developer community and learn about stuff. You would never have to comment on anything, you never have to do anything, but you can have access to that resource, and that's an incredibly powerful thing. Or you can be, like me, slightly more involved and more loud about it and have more fun, but that's entirely your decision to make. And then create content. It's not for everyone, but one of the things I've found is that the best way for me to learn about something and to cement my own knowledge is to create content on it, is to film a video or to write a blog post about something. Because you might think you know something, but until you actually put it down on paper, you don't realize the gaps that you've missed, or you don't realize the kind of issues. And then you research those, and then you fill in those gaps. And the result is you understand the topic better yourself, but you've also produced something that could really help other people. And I think that's a very powerful thing. You don't, unfortunately, maybe we'll never know whether or not it has helped someone, but even if you've helped one person to change their career or to fix an issue they've been stuck on for days, that's a really cool thing. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because there's always going to be people that are afraid to ask questions. And if you ask the question, 10 other people might be wanting that answer and have felt afraid to ask. So not only will you get the answer that you need, but actually you're helping other people in that process. That answer might also be documented if you're using something like Stack Overflow. Someone might search for that problem a few years down the line and find the answers that they need because you asked the question. And ultimately, if we're going to sum everything up about community, everything we've talked about, the key has got to be that we help each other. By doing these things, we're not hindering ourselves, we're not bringing ourselves down, we're not impacting ourselves, we're bringing everyone up together to become better at what they're doing and to enjoy the things that they are doing. And that, again, I think is just an amazing thing that you can't really get from anywhere else outside of a community. That's what a community can do. So to summarize, what are some lessons that I have learned that are incredibly painful but important? There is no such thing as a dumb question. I spent so many years thinking, oh, I know nothing. I'm useless. I shouldn't have to ask this question. I should remember how to do this thing. But in reality, I would have saved so much time if I just asked the question. If I just, whether that's in person to like a colleague, or whether that's on some website or in a forum or wherever it is, if I just asked the question, I would have got the answer I needed and moved on with my life. There are no such thing as dumb questions. There is a huge wealth of resource for Android. I mean, on the negative side, because Android moves so quickly, there's also a huge wealth of information that's completely invalid now. But there is a huge amount of resource out there, and there's a lot of stuff that's still very useful. So do take a look, see what's out there, see what content's there, and get involved. Collaborating is such a great thing. Being able to work with other people all around the world, people that you would never be able to interact with if it wasn't for these communities and these kinds of things. It's great to be able to do that, and it's something that I will just treasure forever, because I have met so many people that I would just never meet before outside of this. And certainly if it wasn't online, you know, if you were just having to focus on your local communities. Finally, it really sucks when your phone does get bricked. It has happened to me, unfortunately. It's something I will never live down. Even my wife still makes fun of me for doing it. So, you know, I'm never going to live that down. I really hope it doesn't happen to people, and it's something that really does suck. But still, it's a lesson you have to learn, and you never make that mistake again, that's for sure. So thank you very much. I hope this has been an interesting conversation, and I hope that you are going to enjoy the rest of the event. There's loads of really cool talks coming up, so I think it's going to be really great. If you are interested in what I'm up to, if you scan the QR code, that takes you to my Polywork profile, which has all my social media on it, all the events that I've been doing, all that sort of fun stuff. And all my slides are also on my GitHub. So do go check those out as well if you would like a copy of them. Thank you very much.